So I'd like
Recording in progress.
I'd like to call the September 24th Infrastructure Committee meeting to order. I guess the first item is to approve the minutes for August 27th, 2024, which are in your packet.
I move to approve the August minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, approved. Okay, there are no action items for Borough Council. And I guess let's get an update on the Norworth Avenue Bridge, and I think Jesse is...
Yeah, Jesse's on Zoom. Hi, Jesse.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for another opportunity to share an update on the bridge replacement here. As with months past, we did provide a status update to Matt that will be included in an upcoming newsletter, but I wanted to share a little bit more detail with the committee today. The design team has been working through the last series of approvals with PennDOT to get the project ready for advertisement. Two big ones that we've been focused on are the safety review and the constructability review. To touch on those a little bit, the safety review looks at the project site, the proposed design, and compares it to the latest safety standards while considering the site's history of crashes and other incidents, all with the goal of meeting or improving the safety of the site. We think we're on track with that. We're requesting a single design exception, which is not anticipated to be an issue. The constructability review, on the other hand, looks at all the project documentation that we've compiled so far for the design and tries to, in advance, identify any issues with the proposed plan that might develop during construction. The goal being to resolve those issues prior to advertisement, help avoid unnecessary costs, and save time during construction. Again, we feel we're on track to get both of those in the coming weeks, which I think is good news. The other outstanding steps with PennDOT are to require our clearances for both railroad and utilities. These are through PennDOT, but the clearances really hinge on our coordination with Amtrak and then Pico Electric and Comcast. We're working to execute agreements between all three parties in the borough for the work that needs to be done as part of the project. Unfortunately, the coordination is taking longer than we anticipated. Specifically, wanted to share about the coordination with Amtrak because that seems to be the controlling factor in our design schedule at this point. To give you a sense, or I guess a reminder of the time it's taken, the council voted to move forward with the agreement with Amtrak in June this year. We got it signed and the agreement was sent to Amtrak on June 26th. So just about 3 months ago to the day. Since then, we've routinely requested status updates from Amtrak, and the most recent actually came through yesterday. Unfortunately, as I shared, I think during last month's committee meeting, Amtrak has indicated that the cost of the project requires the agreement to be signed by their executive vice president, which has resulted in the agreement still not being executed at this point. We've received assurances that it's on the way to their desk or sitting on their desk, and that it will be coming through very soon. Unfortunately, we've been getting that same assurance for about 2 months. We will continue to follow up with Amtrak in the hope of urging this thing forward. Unfortunately, this continued delay is impacting the design schedule and may necessitate delaying advertisement and letting at this point. We, Pennoni, are assessing the impact and plan to provide a more thorough update to the schedule during our next status call with the borough and PennDOT. That'll be October 1st. And obviously, we'll keep the council and the infrastructure committee informed from there. That's a little bit of negative news. Despite this, I do want to say I think we're still very proud of the progress we've made, and we're excited to keep clearing hurdles on the way to the finish line, which for us is having that project awarded to a contractor, getting it ready for construction. In fact, Matt and I were discussing after our last meeting that it might be beneficial to focus one of our upcoming summaries for the newsletter on what the community can expect construction to look like in the coming years. So that's something we plan to pull together. Any questions on all that? It's a lot of info.
So is there any escalation we can do to get Amtrak to respond?
It's a great question. Like I said, I think our available route as a design consultant is to continue to reach out to them on a routine basis, try to make it clear that it's a priority for the borough, it's a priority for PennDOT. On PennDOT's end, we're getting some support from the people who manage their railroad side. They're in routine calls with Amtrak for this and other projects and are continuing to urge it forward too. more voices, the better, but I think we're doing just about everything we can right now.
Matt, do you have any thoughts on that, or is there anything we can do?
This is where political will comes in, and this is where we can start leveraging our connections at the elected level to put some pressure on Amtrak. That's like we don't have any special. We don't have, from staff level, from project engineering level, we don't have any magic words to say, hey, get this thing moving. And this is where political pressure comes into play.
Well, I mean, maybe you should let, Fred and Cindy, 'cause they tend to be the ones that talk to, Capiletti, whoever else.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other questions?
Would it be more the national political people that we need to talk to, like
Yes.
like
Senator Casey specifically. And Senator Casey's office has been on the status call updates. This is as of yesterday afternoon. So we haven't, picked up the phone and emailed anyone yet. We're still trying to figure out what this is going to mean to our flat schedule. Since Amtrak is a quasi-federal organization, it's really, we need to go through federal channels. So,
Right, I just don't, I think the borough needs to make a decision about whether they're gonna play this card. This committee is the right place to make that decision.
no, it was just an update for this committee.
No, I know, I'm just.
is there a point down the road that would be more useful, like to save someone like Senator Casey, or is this the moment to ask him?
I don't know if I want to answer that, because I don't know. So this project will not start the construction until the Boot Road Bridge is done. The Boot Road Bridge is not started. And so, yes, it messes up our timing for the let of the project, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not at the point, my perspective, Jesse, feel free to jump in and correct me, but I'm not at the point where while it's frustrating in the grand scheme of things for the ultimate completion of the bridge, we're still waiting on Amtrak to get on their construction schedule. So that's a big issue. And even when we get on their construction schedule, it all depends on when the Boot Road Bridge is done.
Right.
So I can't control that. There's nothing that I can do to say, hey, hurry up and get that bridge done. And so we're in this weird spot where we're really dependent on things that are out of our control. And so to answer your question, I'm not sure if it's the appropriate time for this type of pressure yet, because it hasn't really, it's going to start pushing our let schedule out. It's going to start. It's not there yet. We're right at it. Like if we don't get this thing within a month, yeah, it's going to change the let schedule. Every month that goes by that we don't have that signed agreement, it will move the let schedule out another month, another month, another month.
Because I think we had not like some sort of confirmation of general expectation, we would probably be the next project after the boot.
Yes.
And so is there any scenario where like delays at this point in the process would change that expectation?
No, because this is from, I am certainly not an engineer and I'm not in the know. We defer to Jesse and his folks. It depends on what project is ready, right? In order for it to be in place, that, hey, look, this project is ready versus the other one. There's another one, I believe, in Darby that is jockeying to be next in line as well. My sources from PennDOT say that our project is significantly further along the approval process than that other one. So it all really depends on which project is ready.
Right.
And getting on a construction schedule, that's what I believe is the more important thing to leverage your political sway, making sure that we get on the next schedule, as the next project.
Okay, thanks. Other questions? Okay, next item is the paving plan.
So I'm going to turn this over to Jeff. This is a continuation of a paving plan that I had developed when I was here. What was that? 2020, I think, is when I did some GISing and created a borough-wide pavement improvement plan using some data that Benoni had generated for us using surface conditions of roadways, and created a map that showed condition of roadway based upon intersection to intersection line segments. And so our paving plan since then, I know we have not been doing significant paving in the past, in the absence that I've been here. You've seen that we've started it again this year. We've been using that data to identify those roads and start repaving those roads. And so Jeff and I have been talking about that, and how can we make that a more visual document, a more fully baked plan that we can use, that council can see some really good numbers with. Hey, look, if we want to continue to operate inside of our public or our highway aid fund, from which we use this year's road paving funds, if we want to continue to live off of that, with what we get with the state, we can estimate how much we're going to get on an annual basis. And then Jeff says, okay, we have X amount of feet, yards, whatever I can, square yards that we need to repave. Do the math. This is how much it's going to cost if we need to do everything. If we live within this amount of money, then it's going to take us X amount of years to pave all of the roads that need to be repaved. So I've asked Jeff to take a look at that and put some numbers to it, and kind of lead a discussion about where we go if we just use existing highway aid funds, or if council would consider contributing additional funds through the general fund, see what that does to the timing of it all. So before I steal Jeff's entire presentation, I'm going to turn it over to him to share the details.
Yep, thank you, Matt. Before I go, just want to, say, we are able to pave again now because, the borough has received additional support to increase our fees for maintenance of our stormwater pipes or underground sewer pipes. So it's a vital process that we clean, camera, inspect before we put out money into our paving program. So we are now finally at the point now to where we can start considering paving on an annual basis, which I know will make a lot of folks here happy. I think roads are some of our most used pieces of infrastructure here. It gets you everywhere. It supports our parks, it supports our downtown, our businesses, everything. So it was important to me to illustrate that our annual allotment from PennDOT is, on a 10-year average, is $110,000. With that, we were able to pave just shy of a half a mile of roadway within the borough. Total miles that we have on our PennDOT allocation list is about 10 3/4 miles. So the math is, if we only contribute or only use what we get each year from PennDOT just for paving, we're looking at 11 years to do our rating 3 roads. Because if you remember, in the paving improvement that was done in 2020, it was rated 1 through 5. We did 4s, now we're working on 3. So we have remaining, 64,000 yards of asphalt to do within there. Just for example, this year's round was around 6,600 yards that we did, for the 2024 paving program. What that does not take into consideration is updating our corner ADA ramps. Within our rating 3 roads, we have 70 of them. And within the liquid fuels contract or any paving project, they come in at about $5,000. So for our rating 3 roads, we are looking at a total investment of about $1.5 million. Over the course of, if we just use our $110,000, that's 15 years. And by that point, we need to start rethinking paving of roads. So that's when it starts to come into play if council will consider an annual contribution, because that doesn't touch rating 2 roads.
But that new number included the bump outs or the
This
ADA?
is just road paving.
Okay.
And 88 ramps.
And ADA?
Yes.
That's what it was, that's
Yes.
So how long was it for the rating 3? At one point it was 5 years, but now it's longer because of the ADA?
If we only use our annual allotment of
Right.
$110,000, that at 1.5 million, we're looking at 15 years. The average lifespan of a roadway is between 15 to 25. Of course, that can vary. You look at roads like Country, Homewood, a lot of these dead end streets, low volume streets can go to that, 20, 25-year run.
But the 15 years is for the rating 3?
Yes.
But it would be 5 years if we just did the roads,
No,
not the ADA.
we're at 1.1 million just for paving, 1.15.
But you said at some point, you said something was 5 years. Nothing's 5 years? Maybe I misheard.
I don't recall saying that.
Okay, well, no.
So, and the rating system is purely based off of condition assessment.
Yes.
So there's no other metrics that were factored into that. So if we wanted to, as part of this plan, we could figure out, like you had raised kind of like, or you didn't raise, but you had mentioned, one of the metrics is, right, like the amount of usage that a street gets in terms of lining up that versus an alternative investment. So we could consider whether a street connects to 2 intersections as part of a prioritization exercise, presumably. And that should be something I think we could probably pretty easily do in GIS if we wanted to.
Yeah, it's something, that I believe is worthwhile to investigate, like paving your entry roads to the borough, so
Right.
your Haverford, Wynwood, North Norworth, all of our main arteries that welcome you to this town. It would be an ideal world, we would have them all paved, on a consistent basis so the town looks, nice and proper. So we can certainly evaluate when we go to reevaluate the road. We can put that into play. That shouldn't be too difficult to play around with.
And so is this on the capital budget in a way that we can take action on it or not?
No, we've kept the road paving separate since it's funded independently through the Highway 8 account. It wasn't included in the capital improvement plan.
Right, but there's potential here to to supplement the funding.
We haven't talked about which fund it should come from,
Well,
whether it's the general or capital.
oh, I see. It could potentially come from the general
Sure.
fund.
Since the capital fund really is a child, all funds, most of our other non-proprietary funds are children of the general fund anyway. Capital fund does not generate its own revenue, does not have its own funding source. It's funded through transfers from the general fund.
No, I know. I just was trying to remember what there was a criteria for when something was a capital expense versus a general expense. That had something to do with the lifetime of the.
Yes, $5,000 one-time expense and a lifetime of 2 or more years.
Well, so it seems like that fits.
So wait, maybe I missed something. Are we proposing to supplement the fund from the general or the
I
capital
don't
fund?
know if that has been made yet. I think we're just talking about the data. I don't think we are strongly recommending anything at this point. It's just saying, hey, look, I'm a visual learner also. I'd like to see it visually and kind of help see what that looks like. And as I'm looking at the paving plan presentation that I made in 2020, that data was generated, I think it might have been done, the assessment might have been done in 19, generated it in 20 or early 2020. As I'm looking at like the rating 2 roads, the rating 2 are average roads. Winwood Ave, North Winwood, is all on number 2, and so I believe that the pavement assessment was completed prior to all of the gas main work that was done on North Winwood, because I drive that every day, it is not an average road. I would classify it personally, anecdotally, as a rating 3. So, I say that to say, this pavement assessment is only as good as the frequency that you assess the pavement conditions. It's a snapshot. And so my recommendation in collecting that data is do it every 5 years. So we're approaching that 5-year mark, and it's a pretty minimal investment to rescan the entire roads. And I've actually worked on it with a prior municipality where we can do it in-house, and it's really cheap for what you get. And I would recommend that we consider doing that at least early as 2025, maybe 2026, to then bake into this to update our ratings. Because we're already at pushing 5-year-old data.
Right,
Yeah.
but do you know, like, for example, do you know which ones you're gonna do next year?
Jeff does. We're looking at, like rating 3, we did Haverford from Montgomery up to Iona.
Yes.
And Shirley Road, not Circle. If you look at, it's on our website, here's rating 3, did this segment. I believe Jeff is considering Iona next year in Meeting House. Kind of start chipping away, coming this way.
So the point I'm making is that, like, if you know what you're doing next year, like, maybe better to wait, because you already know what you're gonna do next year, why not push it out a little bit, so that way, you have a more current.
So rating 3s aren't going to get better by themselves.
So you already know what they all are.
If we've identified rating 3s,
Right.
they're going to at least meet a level 3 or even worse to a level 4. So it would be really looking at those level 2s and seeing which one of those have dropped down into level 3. That's really what the analysis would show. We've got plenty of roadway to invest in. That it's not mission critical to rescan it, but we should be putting that on our radars to.
Okay, so at some point you want to go back and look at the 2s to see what became 3s.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be done like instantly.
No.
Well, we could follow, like, as regards the second conversation, the future conversation about whether we want to supplement the funding or not. Presumably, we could follow some sort of process, not as extensive as what we did with the capital plan, but something similar where we have some sort of high level, obviously the rating system constitutes the bulk of that. If there are other metrics we would want to incorporate, we can incorporate that. And then you could run scenarios. Here's the scenario where we just use the funding we get from PennDOT. Here's the scenario where we recommend it.
And I agree. And this is, I try not to make it too complicated with road paving because most of that, the institutional knowledge of which roads should be repaved comes from that man right there. Mm-hmm. Right? He and his crew are out there every day, all day. And so I don't want to make it like create a system that is overly complex when you just defer to him, hey, which one? Because, oh yeah, Pico was up there, Aqua was up there, they tore up the road, that one's really in rough shape. Let's just do that. Is it a rating 3? Yes. And I know, talking to Jeff, he's always looking at which ones have the higher traffic volume. And he's always saying the justification is, hey, while rating 3 is Windale, do we really want to invest Windale? Is Windale going to be a high priority? No, because it just doesn't have that traffic volume.
Right.
Whereas Windsor and Haverford, yes, right? They have higher traffic volumes, they have higher bike volumes. That's where you would get a higher return on investment.
Right, but we fully support like that way of prioritizing. The issue really that has to go to council is like, do we have to accelerate this?
And that exact thing was kind of like the reason why I was thinking that in my head, because there's two different scenarios, right? Like that, if you told me we could get through all of the high volume streets within the PennDOT funding, and then also meet capital needs without having to spread our revenues thinly across multiple things. That's kind of a different scenario in my mind than if you came back and said, well, actually, we couldn't even meet like the high volume streets. Right, so like, that was more so kind of what I was thinking in terms of like, help clarifying that sort of forward thinking.
As I'm listening to the feedback and, just thinking about conversations I've had with Jeff, I think next month, why don't we retool this to say, let's prioritize those rating 3s based upon that sub-prioritization. Call out your Haverfords and Windsor Aves. Yeah, these are our highest ones, high volume, more intersections. And let's start making that subset and let's run the numbers on those. Because I think that'll give this committee a good idea of, hey, is it mission critical that we need to be putting more general fund dollars, capital fund dollars towards this? Or can we still live comfortably inside of our means?
Yeah, so I wrote down which level 3s are high volume.
Does that make sense, Jeff?
It's also important, we are still focusing on inspecting our pipes, so my recommendations for 25 have been cleaned, inspected, fixed. Certain higher volume portions of the borough have not been cleaned yet or camered.
Right.
So,
Okay, well, so that's a factor.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments?
And how much do we, like, because I assume that the amount that the state is taking in from liquid fuels is dropping over time. So how much do we expect? Do we expect 110,000 to?
110, I think I believe is a good baseline to be at. I think it's a good figure to estimate with. This year in 24, Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we got 114,000.
Okay.
But I took a 10-year average and it worked out to right at 110,000. You have the years of folks not driving, the implementation of EV vehicles, was really started to drop that number that we get each year to pave.
Gotcha.
I would, from a budgeting standpoint, think a 5-year horizon is where we'll see a significant trend downward. It'll probably hover right around that 110 to 100 range. And then maybe in 5 years out, it'll be around 190. I think that's, in my mind, thinking that's where we're gonna start really seeing a downward trend.
Gotcha.
Without any significant changes to the current funding mechanism. Because even with EVs, we still use roads. And so the mechanism isn't right. And so the mechanism needs to change. And I've seen a couple of ideas that have been discussed at the state level with EV fees, changing the fees to replace the fuel tax to help make up for that. So worst case scenario, I'm going to see within a 5-year window, it's starting to decline without any changes to the state funding mechanism.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I don't know that I have like a ton of faith in the state in all aspects, but this seems to be one thing that affects every municipality in the state.
Yes.
So hopefully the incentives are there to address that.
It'll affect the areas that have greater EV take-up more though, right?
No, because it's just, that just affects, right? It just goes into a big bucket and then gets distributed from there.
I
Yes.
see, okay,
Yes.
makes sense.
And so what we're finding also is the weight of EVs is wearing out roads more quickly as well. And so that, all of those things are being considered at the state level to identify what is the best fee to assess, if any EVs. Because EVs are not paying that consumption tax at the gas pump.
Thank you. And thanks for all the data, Jeff. I was kind of wondering how much would cover a half mile versus a mile versus.
Okay, the diesel fuel tank and pump replacement.
So this is another thing that Jeff and I have been working on. I should say Jeff's been working on with my updates. If you remember, we had the diesel fuel tank spill a couple months ago. In the capital improvement plan, we had a line item for the replacement of the 2 fuel pumps. There's one fuel pump out here outside in front of the fire department, and there's one in the public works yard that are both connected to that diesel fuel tank. Originally, we were thinking, okay, we didn't think that the tank was in a state of disrepair that it was going to leak and need to be replaced. So we are now rethinking how we go about getting the diesel fuel that we need to operate our public works vehicles as well as fire vehicles. So Jeff's been working on a pretty neat idea on how we go about the future of that tank and the pumps. And I turned it over to the mastermind himself with the diesel fuel tank and pump replacement strategy that we've.
Oh, thank you. You know, the one good thing that has come out of this tank leak is it's given us a chance to reevaluate how we operate as a fire department, as a public works department. You know, do we need to assume the liability of having that much fuel on site at any given time? So we were able to sit down and discuss with the fire department, you know, their needs. And for them, we researched and came up with a fuel cube, is what it's called. It's a self-contained fuel unit. It is 119 gallons, so that is just under the hazmat. So we would not need any sort of special endorsements to put it in the bed of our truck, bring it down to the transfer station down at the township and get fuel there from the fire department. So that would take care of the fire department. And for the public works, street sweeper and skid steer, we would like to purchase a transfer tank for the bed of one of our trucks. So this would be a great thing to have to keep our sweeper and skid steer full, because we cannot drive them, you know, the 2.5 miles down Woodbine Avenue to the transfer station. Or if we did, my employees would not be too thrilled with me asking that, so I would rather not. So after seeing this, it's really kind of, we've all agreed that, we just don't need to store that much that much fuel on site.
But the cube couldn't hold enough for both.
No. So it would, I lost my train.
Sure.
Up there.
Yeah, and the existing tank that was there was a 500-gallon tank. So a key takeaway with our meeting with the fire department was that we need fuel on site. There are two vehicles that, the street sweeper and the skid steer, that are diesel. We need fuel. Do we need a 500-gallon tank? No. Jeff believes that having this back of the pickup 60-gallon tank would enable him to drive down, fill it up, and then top off and fill up both of those pieces of equipment. And so then it became logistically, how do we provide diesel fuel to our fire department? They are still getting fuel at the transfer station, and they like the security of having some sort of diesel here at the building in case they get called out on a fire and they return late at night and can't drive down to the transfer station to top off. So all of the trucks, the best standard operating procedure is to have all trucks filled at any given time. It's just emergency operations 101. And so this tank is the minimum level that they were comfortable with having on site, that we'd be able to top off all fire vehicles in the event of a full-on event.
And what was its capacity again?
119?
Yes.
119 gallons?
Something in the range.
Yep.
And so they would drive that over to Lower Merion to fill?
That's the idea. That's the worst case scenario. That it would be transportable in the back of one of our public works trucks to drive down to a transfer station, or we're also exploring whether or not fuel delivery can actually deliver and fill up the cube here. So the cube part of it is we're still working out those details in coordination with the fire department. The mission critical is the public works back of the truck 60-gallon tank. Right now it's less than ideal. We have, how many 5-gallon tanks do you have, or cans?
I went and bought 3, just because we had to get some fuel.
So that's mission critical. The other aspect of it, and we don't have any of the details to share quite yet, is that we're also looking at, so separating, we've got, logistically, we need some sort of diesel fuel provision. The other side of it is what do we do with the tank and the 2 pumps? And so if you remember, it was in the capital improvement plan. It did not make the 5-year capital improvement plan because we didn't know the tank was going to leak when it did, so it was not a high priority for us. It's currently in there at 12.5 for the replacement of pumps. There is a Pico Green Region grant that became available, a bonus round for these types of projects. So our grant scheme is to remove the tank and the 2 pumps and cap and seal the fuel line going from the back to the front and replace it with a level 3 EV charger dedicated to our public works, police, and fire department. Because fire department is also in the process of purchasing an EV to replace their chief's vehicle. Therefore, it would be inside of the public works yard, it would be secure, level 3, increase the response times, decrease the downtimes. So that's the other thing that's also in play, and we'll hope to have more information at the next infrastructure committee meeting for that. But the fuel tank issue, that needs to be done sooner rather than later.
Okay. One thing, we had a discussion the other night at council with the police chief about the lifetime of the EV vehicles.
Yes.
And I did some reading after that and discovered that these batteries may actually last longer than 8 years. And they don't know yet, right? Because they haven't been around for 8 years. But one thing they did say that I wanted to bring up, not because I necessarily believe what I read, but that you might research, is that using them with level 3 chargers reduces their lifetime. So, I saw you putting a level 3 charger in, so, I don't know, because if it does, and we have to replace the vehicles every 8 years, and that's not how often we've been replacing them to date.
The idea was that there's an 8-year warranty on them.
Right.
So we were saying, okay, it would be easier for us to sell them at year 7 and get a higher premium than let the warranty run out and then be on the hook to replace the batteries when they go.
That's smart thinking. What's the market gonna be for 8-year-old EVs with
Not sure.
batteries that are just about to drop off warranty?
That are also fit out to be police vehicles.
There's always a market for those post-police used vehicles. There is a pretty strong following for those folks. Granted, it's typically been focused on the motorheads who like the police interceptor engines, but
Okay. So you're still working on something that will go to council?
yes.
I think from a replacement standpoint anyway, you don't really want to hold on to like a police vehicle longer than 8 years anyway. Because they have more wear and tear than the standard vehicle does, even though they don't have maybe as many miles, just in the nature of what they're doing sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, your average township is keeping police vehicles for 3 years.
Wow.
I believe we should be about 5.
Yeah, my previous job, it was 5 years, but I'm not saying we should do 5, but 8 years is probably as long as we want to go. We don't want to go any further.
Well, but then,
That's pretty good information. Yeah, I
well,
know.
but then the resale might be better.
Yes. 5 years, 3 to 5 years is the sweet spot.
Okay. And then do we have some other projects from the borough engineer that we need to talk about at all?
I know for the roads program, I just got a message from the contractor yesterday saying that he addressed all the punch list items. So we're gonna have one of our inspectors go out, check that out, make sure that we're all set there. If we are, then we can close the project out, and we'll be done with that project. We started pulling together some things for the bump out research. So we started compiling a list, started looking at, how beneficial certain areas would be. So we're on our way, pulling that all together. Beyond that, I believe that's it, unless I forgot to mention something, Eric.
No, everyone should be aware of everything that's going on. Just trying to wrap up this year's project.
And if I could just continue to talk about paving for a minute, we did come in about $19,000 under budget, so that's really good too, which will help.
We always try and account for when we open up your roads. We'll see what's underneath, but the base turned out pretty well this year, so a little bit of savings.
Okay, I guess, is there anybody from the public on the phone? But we're not here.
No.
No? Okay, and then I guess I could, but do you guys have anything else you want to discuss? I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Thanks.
That's all.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Okay.